because Milton rapidly intensified and people were seeing this really big hurricane, I think they were taking those evacuation orders very seriously. Even though the forecast said it was likely weaken and not come ashore as a Category 5 hurricane, the fact that it was out there and was that powerful, I think that also conveyed the danger. And obviously, people that were seeing flooding from Helene where they didn't get hurricane force winds, I think that also re emphasized how dangerous the storm could be. Well, there's two ways to look at it. One, it's better to get out of there and not deal with the storm, and more importantly, not putting you and your family at risk of losing your life. And that's a hard thing to say is not worthwhile. But the other part of this is people don't have to go hundreds of miles, just tens of miles. And these counties that were being impacted opened up public shelters, which are free. They were providing public transportation, which was free. The state of Florida had worked an agreement with Uber where you could contact Uber and get a ride to a shelter for free. So this really comes down to yes, this is a big inconvenience, and a lot of people are going to go home and there wasn't much damage, which is actually, I think, great news. But the amount of time it takes to evacuate and the time it takes to make these decisions means we have to go days out, which many people did. So for people that can afford it and want to do that, that's great. But for people that this is getting to be too expensive, there are programs in your counties to get you somewhere safe during the storm. How do you deal with misinformation? And it was coming from all over the place. And most of the time when I heard the misinformation, the thing that struck me, it was always about them, not about the people we're trying to help. And so I think what you got to remember is the best source of information in any of these types of disasters, whether it's hurricanes, floods, or wildfires, it comes from your local officials. And I think that's why it's so critical when we say tune to your local radio and TV stations, go to those local sources, because those local officials are going to be telling you what you need to know on the ground. And if federal assistance and other programs are being activated, they're the ones that can tell you about that as well. Money. This is not something that I think we've got a handle on, because if you remember, before these hurricanes hit, the administration was already asking for additional funding for previous disasters. And this is for the long-term rebuilding. And when Congress did the supplemental, all they did was basically allocate about a quarter of FEMA's budget, including the funds for the disaster relief fund. So it allowed FEMA to respond to these disasters. What it's not allowing is to take the cost of rebuilding from these current disasters as well as past ones. We're not keeping up. And so I think as a nation, as taxpayers, we really need to be understanding that what we've done in the past isn't keeping up. In many cases where we look for insurance to help take care of a lot of these losses, people can no longer get insurance or it's not available. And we're seeing a cost of these disasters accelerating that, looking backwards, isn't addressing both the financial needs, nor is it addressing the policies that we need to be implementing to at least stop the growth of the cost to the taxpayer while we deal with these current losses.